So I just saw the new Quentin Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it was pretty great, I think. The standard that Quentin Tarantino has set for himself is a pretty high bar at this point. It is certainly a very well-polished film on a technical level. The lighting and shot composition look fantastic. The soundtrack choices were thoroughly enjoyable. The acting was all pretty awesome. I really enjoyed the chemistry between Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio's characters, and both of their performances were highlights of the film for me. But when it comes to the film's story structure, let's just say that this one feels a little different. This is probably one of the most patient and mature films he's made. Many of Tarantino's films are relatively upbeat, but this one seemed to have different goals in mind. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, although I can understand why some people might be a bit off-put by it. The best way to experience this film is to be aware of the 2-hour and 40-minute runtime before you see it. I was never bored throughout the film, but I imagine that I could have been if that wasn't something I was anticipating. The way the story is structured in this film, it almost feels as though each scene is its own short film with recurring characters. There are many scenes in this film that don't really progress the overarching story, and although some people might think that they're pointless, I would not really consider them to be as such. There are many scenes in the film that exist solely to develop and explore these characters, and I found the characters in this film to be very interesting, so I thoroughly enjoyed those. The film does feel a little strange in terms of how the story is structured, but it's something that I feel like I might enjoy more on my second watch now that I know what to expect. There are a lot of interesting presentation choices in this film. There are points where they recreate scenes from other existing films, and it all looks pretty convincing. Although there was one scene where I found myself a bit confused by what I perceived to be a missed opportunity. Leonardo DiCaprio's character is a Hollywood actor, and there are points in the film where they essentially show us the movie that's being made as he's filming it. And although there are other points in the film where they use older audio equipment and cameras to help create the feeling of an older film, for whatever reason they didn't do that here, and it was kind of distracting. And the perspective that we're seeing the scene from is supposed to be from the camera that they're using to film this film within a film, but for some reason they didn't commit to the style, and it was really strange. Instead, I just had to imagine that the perspective we were seeing it from was from an invisible camera in front of the camera in the film's universe. All of the audio sounded way too clean and modern. So yeah, not really a flaw or anything, but it just felt really weird. Alright, I think I'm gonna go into spoiler territory to talk about a couple things, so if you don't want to be spoiled for this movie, just click to this point in the video. There's your warning. 3, 2, 1. Now, as I said, the tone for this film is very patient and mature, so it's kind of odd that the first 5 minutes and the last 10 minutes of the film were not at all. Don't get me wrong, the end scene was certainly a satisfying payoff, but I was really enjoying how restricted and held back the rest of the film had been up until that point, and although it was certainly entertaining, part of me felt as though he was just kind of returning back to his same old shtick. Whether the ending of the film was meant to be a reference to Inglourious Basterds or not, in this film it felt like such an incredibly drastic departure from its tone, whereas the ending of Inglourious Basterds didn't really seem out of place at all. The tone of Inglourious Basterds in its entirety complements that kind of ending, but in this film it almost feels like it's from a different movie. It's certainly going to affect how I view the film on my second watch now that I know what to anticipate, and who knows, it might be for the better. Also, you can't smoke LSD, Quentin. That's not how it works. It was totally worth the scene, and Brad Pitt's performance was amazing, but he should have used a blotter or something because that was distractingly inaccurate. Anyway, I really enjoyed this movie overall. I personally don't feel as though it's as good as The Hateful Eight, but it's still a pretty great film overall. I really loved watching these characters and the performances that brought them to life. Check this one out whenever you can, and I'll definitely be seeing it again. And I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. It's closer to an 8 than a 6, but who knows, that might change on my second watch. I don't know. Thank you. Bye-bye.